Good morning. My name is Tim Andaya from Strategic Systems Group. I'm a 17-year veteran of SSG and a 27-year veteran of IT. Welcome to my presentation for security, or Why is Tim So Paranoid? This is going to be a brief explanation of the status of malware and viruses today and some things that you can do to protect yourself. It's not a panacea. It's not going to answer every problem that there is out there with security, but it will help you make some better decisions about how to protect yourself in the wild or on the internet. When you first get a computer these days, right off the bat, you have to patch. And most of the patches that you have to perform are security related. The two most common non-productivity applications that you will buy with your computer is antivirus and malware. Most people don't know that they have a built-in firewall at their desktop or on their computer. And most people don't realize that the devices you buy commercially for providing internet access do not really have firewall capabilities built into them other than at a very rudimentary state. Malware and viruses today are no longer the realm of script kiddies and your average miscreant or your angry person who's just looking to hurt people. Malware and viruses today are big business, not only in organized crime, but in use by governments today. In the news recently, 100,000 identifications were stolen from the U.S. government, and China has been suspected of doing so. It is big business. It's something that you really need to be aware of. Most of the high-end intrusion software that's out today is not designed to cause your computer to stop working. It's designed to move in quietly, set up shop, and observe what you're doing. It's looking for things like your social security, identification numbers, credit and bank information, and then passwords, favorite names, anything it can get to build a profile of who you are and get information to steal your credit, to steal your identity. Social networking has been a boon for commercial, criminal, and governmental data mining of our lives. You need to learn how to lock down your profile or what your public image is. You should only be sharing with people you know, especially personal information. Don't advertise when you're traveling. It's bad. Save your photobombing for after the trip. Everybody can, it's just like having that slideshow when in the 70s and 60s that we used to have to suffer through. If you use your phone for social media, you should be really, really aware that not only does social media, tweeting, etc., let people know where you are, but it tells the people you know where you are. It tells criminals where you aren't. So when you're out of the house and telling people that you're in, off watching a club show or in Cabo San Lucas, it lets criminals know that you are not at home and that your home is at risk for more easy intrusion. What can you do about it? Well, not much, maybe a little. As individuals and businesses, I recommend that you run separate computers for business transactions and recreational purposes. Use security. Create a user for installing software, what most people in the IT industry call an administrator. That computer user has full control over the computer and never uses the internet for anything other than patching. Then you would create a normal user, Billy Bob and Bobby Sue. That user has basic functionality. They can use the software that has been installed on the computer, but they can't install software. This is one of your first lines of defense when you're connecting to the internet and accidentally connecting on a link that was going to try and install malware on your computer. Website accounts. I know it's painful, but you should create different passwords for each website account. and really you should use different usernames. I don't. I'm very bad at that particular item. You should use complex passwords. Consider phrases or using upper and lowercase letters. Add numbers and letters. Consider extended characters. Make your passwords hard, but make them something that you personally can remember. With internet purchasing, you should consider the throwaway credit card numbers or getting a dedicated purpose credit card so that you can track how it's being used. There is no such thing as safe sex on the internet. As soon as you go out onto the internet, you are at risk for infection, either through malware or viruses. You should buy a firewall, not the $32, $150 router that you get at Fry's or Best Buy, but you should get a real firewall that will cost you anywhere between $400 and, oh my God, you've got to be kidding. And you want something that handles something that's new. It's called deep packet inspection of SSL traffic. Pay for the annual support and replacement costs. This is a capital expenditure. You should be budgeting for this. Get your firewall configured properly. What that means is not only protecting yourself from inbound intrusions, but you should be protecting yourself from outbound traffic that may be a consequence of having had your system suborned. Realize that, like all durable electronic goods, they're only going to be good for between 3 to 5 years, and so as a capital expenditure, it's again something that you're going to have to plan for. Cell phones. Don't take your cell phone into your lawyer's office or your accountant's office unless you're sure that there's nothing going to be said there that could harm you or, be embarrassing to you. You shouldn't be carrying your cell phone unholstered. With these new smartphones today that have cameras on both sides, it's extremely easy to make a three-dimensional rendering of where you are, and then you could be tracked much more easily. Those pesky cameras that we love to leave connected on our computers, a circle Band-Aid works great to cover the camera lens on laptops, and the USB cameras most of us have plugged into our computers. Unplug them. Only plug them in when you're going to use them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Hello, Tim. This is Brian.
Hello, Brian.
There's some stuff called adware that pops up on systems from time to time. What is adware, and what's the typical process to get rid of it?
Adware is another form of, it's essentially malware. Generally, what adware does is it redirects your DNS, or the way when you try to connect to other internet sites, it redirects you to a different website than the one you were expecting to connect to. Often what it's trying to do is get you to click on the pop-ups that you may see and send you off to some place you really shouldn't be going to. When you have that kind of infection, it's time to try and contact a professional. It's my opinion that malware should be considered viruses, and that antivirus software companies should be required to provide methods for removing it integral into their applications proper. But the technicality they use is that with malware, when you click on it, you are actually inviting the software to be loaded onto your computer. Again, this is why I recommend to people that you have a software installer and a non-software installer. Generally, when you see something pop up, don't click on it. If at all possible, try hitting Control F4 or Alt F4 to try and get it to close. Failing that, you might want to force shut down your computer and take it in for professional review. Any other questions?
Yeah, my name is David, I have a question on your firewalls.
Mm-hmm.
The $30 ones are really nice to install, and they're easy to configure, but I suspect the much more expensive ones will be far beyond what I can manage. Is there anything in the middle that I might be able to use, or are there resources out there that might help me with this?
Well, you're correct that higher that commercial grade firewalls are a little bit more complex to configure. That's one reason why I suggest that you get the support, because you can always force support to help you. There are several manufacturers of firewalls out there today that have provided friendlier GUI tools. You still need to spend some time with a professional, someone like me, who can help you make decisions about outbound traffic. Inbound traffic is generally not a problem because by default, inbound traffic is dropped that's unrequested. But what you want to deal with is your outbound traffic. And as time progresses, currently about between 25 to 35% of all traffic on the internet is currently encrypted. And that number is expected to go up. The reason for this is encrypted traffic. You have your secure transfer of information that no one can see inside and outside. Some of the newer firewall technology is designed to actually decrypt and re-encrypt that traffic and inspect it for infection. That's because it is expected by 2017 that 50 to 70% of all traffic traveling across the internet is going to be secure traffic. And as a consequence, that kind of traffic is going to need to be inspected, because the professional malware and virus providers will be using that as a means of injecting viruses into your system, and it'll be harder for the current tools to protect against that. So yes, you would need to find someone to help you professionally. There are manufacturers such as Sonic Wall, which have friendlier GUIs. I can help most secretary level, computer literacy skilled people configure those over a telephone. Cisco has improved their GUIs, so there are manufacturers with better GUIs out there, but you do still want to confer with a professional, at least for your initial configuration, and to get some training to configure them. There's really no way around that. Did that answer your question, Dave?
Yeah, yes. But one more follow-up question. A lot of us that are running out of our home businesses also have families. So I have children with various Xboxes and Wiis and phones that are running on the same network. Is that dangerous?
Yes and no. You're going to be going. You could segregate your traffic with a more advanced firewall. That capability is really built in, and I would recommend that you do that. In fact, at my home office, I do that. I have a separate guest network. It has its own connection on the firewall. I have connection for my business systems here. It's isolated. It does take a little more configuration. People love to use wireless routers. You can hang a separate network using your wireless router off of your firewall and have all guests and or family use that. You could buy multiple so that you could have one for guests, one for the family, and then use your primary firewall for yourself. You have avenues of making your network more secure once you move up to a commercial grade firewall, where you wouldn't have that capability at all in the lesser expensive devices. Is there any other questions?
One last
Sure.
question.
Absolutely.
You had a slide up there for passwords, which were pretty complex passwords. Do you have any experience or recommendations regarding password vaults?
I'm on the fence with password vaults. It's true that as your life becomes more complex, and especially if you start doing things like having complex passwords, that you need some way to track those passwords. I can tell you quite honestly, in the last year I've been resetting my passwords through the services that I use because of the fact that I can't remember them all anymore, although I have to deal with a lot more passwords. Password vaults seem like a cool idea, but essentially you've then provided one place for all of your keys, and you've got one key in front of it. Most password vaults do require a password. And so now you've got some place on your computer where you're storing all of your keys, and you've given someone a method to take that and try and break in. So I don't like them, and I don't use them. But by all means, if it makes your life easier, go ahead. The reason why let me add a little bit to that with my password complexity, is the reason why I suggest creating phrases or something that works for you in your mind that you can then muddy up with upper and lower case and numbers and extended characters, but it's unique to you. One of the people I used to work with used to like to use Latin words, and so he would create passwords with Latin phrases, and it really worked for him, and I learned a little Latin. Do I have any other questions?
That was great, Tim. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time. And if you need to, please feel free to give me a call and we can discuss this further. Once again, my name is Tim Andaya from Strategic Systems Group. My contact information is here, and I will be distributing this to you, or if you signed up on my list, I will email you a color copy of this presentation. Thank you very much.